Survival. I too had to invent that word. It's like survival, but rather better, isn't it? And the very fact that I had to invent the word, I think, says a lot about the lack of loftiness of the aspirations of English-speaking people. Because we have a word for things. If we don't have a word, we don't think it's important. So aim to thrive, surely, is something we all should be doing. Louise does that, doesn't she? It's interesting because each of us, the futurist is actually two people. One is the prophet part of us, which is the what will be person. I call that the probable future. Where are the trends taking us? If we do nothing, where will we finish up? And so on. That's the manager part of us. The other part is the visionary. Not what will be, but what should or could be. That's Louise, isn't it? That's the leader part of us. The visionary, the prophet and the visionary. Now, there's a third one for Louise because we've had the probable future, what will be, the preferred future, what could or should be, and the possible future. She's disabled, so she couldn't run the Olympic 1,800 metres. For able-bodied, so she did what she could do and stretched that to the limit and made that to her own. So the first important thing is to think about those three and those three kinds of futures and to think about each of them in our lives. The manager part of us, the what will be, the leader part of us, what should or could be. If we carry on as business as usual, change no mindsets, don't change the vision, or even, where will we be in 20 years' time? Will we be blossoming? Will we be making do? Will be a lot less than either of those. In other words, more of the same, business as usual, is not probably an option if we're going to seek for thrivability and thrival. So what we have to do is change the mindset so we can actually do those things and achieve those things. To aim to thrive. Now, in our work, we have to change that mindset from the very beginning and start thinking differently. And that means I'm going to talk to you about leadership and management in some more detail now, because that's the kind of issue which we need to actually think through and make sure we're both leader and manager. Each of us is manager and leader of self, and maybe of other. And what we need to do is to make sure the management part and the leadership part are in balance. I would suggest to you, I think Australia is an overmanaged and underled country. Is that true? And we put managers in positions where leaders are needed. Yeah? So we have these words, managers and leaders. But we actually don't think about that we are both in our lives. Leadership is not something we do for other people, it's something we do for ourselves. Okay? Now, the what will be and the what should be. George Bernard Shaw said, some people see things as they are and ask why. I see things as they could be and ask why not. That's what Louise was doing, wasn't she? She just went out and made it happen. So, in overmanaged and underled Australia, we have to, first of all, we have to actually lead this industry, this industrial structure, which, what, say 14%, I'm told, of the entire workforce works in this industry, or something of that order. A very large number of people across the country. And it's an industry that's not thriving, and perhaps it hasn't visualised what thrival might be. And can we do that? Can we do that and imagine in 20 years' time we've actually created an industrial outcome which is different because we've changed the mindsets and we've changed the vision? So let's talk about managers and leaders now in a way which we can understand them and make sure we understand that when we're leading our lives and when we're managing our lives. And everything I say today is not only about you and your workplace, but also you in your personal life, because management and leadership are things we do for ourselves in our own lives. We can take them to work too. And we're going to take the leader to work as much as the manager to work. And we're also going to take the parent to work. I have a one-line job description of a parent. It's a person who works for 20 years to create a successful adult. Sometimes people say now it's taking 30 years rather than 20. And I think it's important that we need to think about what successful adulthood is. Now, if I had more time, up here, there are 100 slides. I'll show you about 2 of them today. But the 100 slides are a mindset. All the things I'm quickly covering in my talk are in detail here. So successful adulthood, my list of things to do and things to achieve for successful adulthood are up there. And you can get, these are available to everybody in this room through downloading subsequently. Okay? So the parent is a 20-year thinker, intuitively, the parent in each of us. Now, if we take the parent to work in us, think about the work we're doing with our own children, helping them visualise their future and do a whole lot of things, and then help them take that future. So take the leader to work. I'm going to talk about it in more detail, and also take the parent in us to work too. The parent in us is a capability which is a 20-year capability. We must never forget, as parents, we're not short-term people. We actually are thinking intergenerationally, naturally. So that's the important thing. When we start working with our own children as parents, we have the same skill sets to do that with everybody else in our work situation. Those skill sets are embodied in us all the time. Now, managers and leaders. Managers respond to change. Leaders create and shape change. Managers are concerned about doing the thing right. Leaders are concerned about doing the right thing. Now, that right thing might be an ethical issue. It might be about appropriateness to do the right thing. I was talking this morning about doing the right thing and building an investment package. And I was suggesting that if you had some money to spend and invest in an industrial future, you probably wouldn't put it in tobacco, would you? Because that's inappropriate. Because we know tobacco is on its last legs. We don't know quite when it will die, but we know it will. And there's a lot of people hounding it to a quick extinction anyway. Doing the right thing. Managers are concerned about fate. Leaders are concerned about destiny. Now, destiny I'm going to dwell on a bit because I want to break it out, and then I'll come back to managers and leaders again. Henry Ford said, the secret to a successful life is to understand what is one's destiny to do and to do it. And destiny has two bits: what you love doing, passion, and what you're good at, aptitude. So as a futurist, I have lots of young people in the year 9 and 10 say, tell me what I should study at university, where will the jobs be? I said, it doesn't matter what you study at university, it'll bear no relationship to what you're doing when you're 35. Follow your passion, not your pension. You see, why is that sensible? 70% of the job categories in the products and services in 25 years' time, which is a generation, have yet to be invented. So the job that they will be doing in 25 years' time has not been invented and requires skill sets which we can't predict, or we can predict up to a degree. But the important point is we have to now to have a very resilient way to craft a career path in our lives. And that career path is based on a series of mindsets about visualising the future, which I'm going to talk about. But first of all, I want to talk about destiny. What I do with my young people now, I get them to do what I call a destiny dialogue. This is the insight bit. You see, Australians are not very good at insight. We do the foresight all the time, but we don't do the insight. And how many people go into career paths of all sorts and realise they made a mistake? Money well spent. I mean, a number of young people who try to become doctors who are totally inappropriate to be doctors, it's legendary. And the cost of even the first couple of years of medicine is expensive. It's a catastrophic waste of educational resources. If we did better work with those young people to convince them what their destiny was before they even considered those options, that might be it. So I want to imagine yourself, everybody entering your education and learning streams does a destiny dialogue. They make 4 columns. I'm good at that. I'm bad at that. I love doing that. I hate doing that. Okay? That's a conversation they have with their parents, their friends, around each of us. What's my destiny? And I'm working on developing a whole series of packages in my own work. But fulfilling your destiny creates your work. that which you do which gives meaning to your life. And that turning your work into your employment, so to generate cash flow from that, is another way to think about that. But first of all, we have to decide what our work is. We're all different, we're all unique, and surely we should be celebrating the specific purpose of each of us and the intrinsic abilities first, and crafting career paths which best suit that destiny. That's the first stage. Insight. Then the foresight. What are the emerging possibilities and opportunities emerging which best fit my destiny? I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on, because we can actually predict to a degree what people want to buy and sell in 25 years' time through a simple process. If I understand the values of, say, 2030, the dominant values, and I think we can do that, we understand what people value and find to be valuable in 2030, and what they value and find to be valuable in 2030, they want more of and create products and services markets for. So we can actually, the things that value, we do. Now, I could create whole lots of examples of that, but I'm very interested in one of the revolutions about the social media, the Facebooks of the world and the Twitters of the world. It's exploded. Exploded. Why could have that happened? Well, I think the answer is really fairly simple. We have the genes of cave dwellers. When we lived in caves, we had 15 people we were intimate with and about 500 we knew well. You know something? We're programmed like that. It's in our genes. Have you noticed every sporting team in the world is between about 8 and about 18? We don't have sporting teams of 45 people. So the first thing is, we still want to be intimate with 15 and friendly with, but now the problem is they're all over the planet, aren't they? So the need to have that intimacy. So we've invented the Twitters and Facebooks of the world and the Skypes to fill that need. But the yearnings inside ourselves, our biological, have not changed, but it expresses in Marshall McLuhan's Global Village. So, that's the foresight. Now, I've talked about insight, destiny dialogue. Insight I call destination dialogue. And there's a third one, hindsight. I call that derivation dialogue. Imagine putting this at the entry point of every educational stream in your work, irrespective of what you're doing. Where have I come from until the point, from the present, the past into the present? And there are two things I bring with me. One is the heritage. What are the priceless things in my life that I must keep and nurture, so when I change everything else, which I should be doing, I treasure the heritage and don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And the second piece is the baggage. What's the garbage in my life which I have to identify and throw out? Now, I've been working with a couple of very wealthy private schools in Melbourne, and they keep on talking about their heritage. I keep on reminding them that what was their heritage 30 years ago is baggage today, because things change. So, first of all, I've talked about when I want to talk about destiny and fate, insight first, we must do more of this. Foresight, second, what are the emerging opportunities? And hindsight, where have I come from? Derivation dialogue, what is my heritage and what's my... Now, we could do that at the beginning of all educational streams. We're going to create a much more effective, efficient education system of all sorts, including in all your work, because we're going to be matching people to destinies and to emerging opportunities through a model which I've just discussed with you. So I now want to come back to managers and leaders. Managers control, leaders facilitate. Big difference between those words. We have too much control and not enough facilitation, yes? Don't stop, Johnny, my son, stop doing that. We all have to be managers and control our kids. But we also facilitate. There's a beautiful door there. Would you like to walk through it and see what's on the other side? That's the other side. So we have control and facilitation. Managers work in organisation, leaders work on organisations. Now, you would know your best ideas about your work occur when you're not at work. Having a stimulating conversation, sitting in the shower, running. This is important because, you see, that's the leadership part of us. The manager's working hard to fix the problems and all of that and get there. But the smart thinking is the leadership stuff, the reflective time, which only comes when you are working on the organisation, not in it. You're outside it, reflecting on it, and you're stimulated perhaps by an event. You often see Australia with great clarity when you're in another country, don't you? We all have those experiences. So we have to visit the leader in us to get that reflective time. When the manager part of us asks the question is, what will the future be like? I've said that already. The probable future. What will it be like? That's the manager part of us. Where are the trends? And your job as a good manager is to see where you're going, remove the obstacles, fix up the problem so there are less problems than obstacles. Indeed, to be a great problem solver in Australia is regarded as a heroic badge. I unambiguously suggest to you it's a national curse. If all you are doing is removing problems from the future, you're merely creating a future which is merely less awful. Not wonderful, not heroic, not magnificent. To create any of those, you have to imagine those things. You see, the future is about imagination, just as the past is about memory. Memory for the past, imagination for the future. And Michael Reddy from McKinsey said it beautifully. He says, we do everything twice, actually. The first time when we imagine it, the second time when we do it. Now, the leader asked the question, the preferred future, what is my dream and how do I make it come true? Well, look, listen to Louise. I'm just following Louise. It's an honour to follow her, by God. Look at that. You see, but John Kennedy said we're going to go to the moon and back again. No one had a clue how to do it, but America got there. You see, the important thing about heroic visions is we can extend this wonderful thing called the human mind and ingenuity and innovativeness and create wonderful things. And that's important. So the preferred future is where we'd like to go. And as I said, on the side, we can have a third one I call the possible future is, well, we can't do all that now, but we can do some of it now. Or if a person with disability or some other thing, we can't do all of that, but we can do something else which stretches. And Louise is the exemplar of that. I've never heard a better exemplar in my life than what she just presented to you people. So problem preferred. You see, but also, so the leader part of us and the manager part of us imagine different destinations of what will be and what could or should be. But they also have different strategic purpose ways of getting there. The manager is that problem-centered person in removing obstacles. Now, removing obstacles from the trends, past ways, is important. I'm not knocking management. Don't think I am. But what we're doing is we're using management when we should be using leadership. And the vision and the mindsets are wrong to create an organisation that's headed for thrival. All of you people going to a more heroic destination which can stretch you. The preferred future, we need not just a problem-centred strategy, which is removing bad things, but a mission-directed strategy putting good things in the future. And there are 5 things we need to put. What are the obstacles we need to remove? What are the new initiatives we need to take? What are the improvements we need to make? What's the heritage we need to keep and what's the baggage we have to throw out? So the important point about the manager and leader, my model of manager and leadership, it's about future making. You see, the manager is the future taker in us. The leader is the future maker in us. And the perfect manager is the resilient future maker. The perfect leader is the purposeful future maker. Resilient future taker, purposeful future maker. So far, I've talked about the mindsets for management and leadership. And if I can bring up all these masses of slides here, which I'll scan through quickly. Oh, wait, I'll go back there. I've just talked about, there are 5 things, 6 things we use to shape the future. I've talked about the top 2. The bottom one you're in. When we shape futures, there are 5 toolkits we have. And we tend to put people in different categories here. And the important point about that is they're all important. So if we're in the manager position, for example, we need to think about All of us to be effective future makers have to be good at all of these, not just some of these. Okay? But we split up. We have designers and planners and innovators. We think they're all unrelated to each other. They're not. They're all tools for effective future making. Okay? And resilient future taking. Yeah, that's the summary. And I will leave that pretty much up for a little while. I forgot about cautious and careful. I always forget one. Isn't there a difference between the word cautious and the word careful? Aren't they importantly different words? We have too much caution, not enough carefulness. We all have to be careful, but we are cautious when we need to be careful and understand the fundamental difference between the two. Imagine yourself on the edge of a minefield. On the other side is paradise. The cautious person won't try, but the careful, bold person will say, I'm going to use my best vigilance, my best intelligence to inherit paradise. Thank you very much. Now, I want to come back to leaders and managers and one other thing now. I want you to imagine you're in a sailboat in a 3-knot tide and a 6-knot wind. The tide is the metaphor for all the things in our lives: mindsets, investment patterns, regulations and controls, working conditions, which are taking us to the future. They're all controls of one sort or another, and they're limiting things. Now, too much of Australia is going where the tide takes us. And tides never take you to paradise, more likely to be on the rocks. Okay? Now, you wouldn't get in a sailboat to go where the tide takes you. That's a piece of total nonsense. You would get in the sailboat for a purpose. If it's to win a race, those who are amongst us who are sailors like me would want to get on the windward side of the fleet, pick up the wind shift first, and win by getting to the future first. Success goes to those who get to the future first. Now, I want you to imagine this entire industry in 20 years' time has got to the future first, and we now have an export industry in this area. You see, you'll be part of a globalised world in 20 years' time. People will be working internationally, coming and going. That's the way the world is. The whole nature of our society is changing, and we're now involved in a globalising world of interconnected working coming. All of you people will be working overseas. The next generation will more so. But now, you see, this is important. Quite recently, I did some work for the Electoral Commission. And they said, well, what's the future of democracy and elections? And I said to them, well, I want you to imagine that, remember, at the end of the Second World War, there were just 12 fully fledged democracies on the planet today. Then. There's now 135, some of them not too fully fledged but trying, and a whole lot of democracies being born in Libya, Iraq, Yemen, etc. And what's in short supply? Free and fair elections, that's in short supply. Do you realise there's an international market for free and fair elections? So I've suggested to the Electoral Commission they set up Democracy Australia and export free and fair elections to the planet. Okay? That's a legitimate industrial future, is it not? Okay? The point is, that's in demand, and we got to the future first, and so we're really good at that. If you look at water, there's two countries in the world who have overwhelming control of the world water market, industry market. One of the Dutch who have too much, and one of the Israelis who don't have enough. They solve their own local problems, and they're now exporting waste. So, for example, I'm working on a potential idea to save Bangladesh from climate change. There's 125 million Bangladeshis who are threatened by sea rise. We could stop that putting a dike right across the Bay of Bengal. Just going to go out and buy some shares in Dutch dike building companies, eh? So now we're talking about the meeting demand. That was an aside. I didn't mean to do that, but this is what I want to talk about, though. You see, the leader part of us is also a person of the heart, not just the head. The manager part of us is a neck-up person, rational, simple thinking. The leader part of us is a person of the heart. And they're my 6 C's of the heart. The top 3, if you know your Jung, that's animus, and if you know the Chinese, that's yang. The bottom 3 are the feminine ones, yin and anima. Now, Nelson Mandela is fantastic on all 6. Give you another example. Geoffrey Kennett, our former Premier of Victoria, was fantastic on the top three when he was Premier and terrible on the bottom three. But then he became in charge of Big Blue. And he's grown the bottom three significantly. He's gained more respect now as leader than any time in his past. So I do a lot of work on working on all these areas within leadership. Now I'm going to have to canter through because these are what leaders do. I'll quickly do this one too. The vision, where should we be going? Where are we going? Probable. Where should we be going? Preferred. Let's get that sorted. Get the vision right. Where should we be going? What does this industrial future should be like in 20 years' time? Maybe you need a vision for your complete industry in 20 years' time for a global market as a serious piece of work, not just to respond to change, but to create and shape change, to be future makers, to get to the future first and export to the world. The values, what do we believe in, both good and bad? I do a lot of work with rural communities, and they are killed off by the values which are kill them. Tall poppyism, all the bright people are driven away. The people who could... Cultural cringism, we can grow the wool, but we could possibly make the Italian suits, only Italians can do that. Or cargo cultism, Mr. Big Government, Mr. Big, please give us jobs. The idea we might create our own never occurs, because we don't imagine getting to the future first with an industrial market. Virtues are the ones we promote. Venturers. This is important when we bring our leaders, because leaders should not overuse their credits. They'll be thrown out as leaders. But what they do is they empower the champions and the allies. The champions are the people inside the organisation who are, Paul Keating would say, the true believers. The allies are the external supporters. The voyagers, I've talked about that. Down the vehicles I want to quickly talk about now in some detail, not too much, but basically we need additional resources. I call those capacities and capabilities. That might be language you find out. Capacities are the resources we need to do the new job that we just decided we need to do. Money, technology, and capabilities are the skills. That's you. How do you match the capabilities, not for the current job market, for the job market at 20 years' time, so we can create career paths which are self-driven, because we're going to talk about we have to actually create our own career path and get people to support us by having a vision of our own destiny, work and employment. I've talked about that. And down the bottom, I talk about the ways and wheres. Now, this is really important. We have to invent a whole lot of new things to do new things, to achieve new outcomes. And we need to innovate new ways to behave, I call those ways, and new technologies and things we use, I call those wheres. So a water conservation way would be shortening your shower from 6 to 3 minutes. And a water conservation where would be a low volume shower head. They create water conservation together, okay? Now I want you to imagine the ways and wheres to create all the jobs that you need to be done, invent them first and get to the future first. I'll give you a couple of examples in the environment. I do a lot of work on the environment, on the sustainability agenda. And here are some ground rules, design rules for a sustainable future. The first one is we have to learn to live within perpetual solar income. There's 10,000 times more energy arriving on the sun every day than we could ever conceivably use. But you know, the people who create the ways and the wheres to help us live within perpetual solar income just might become 21st century billionaires, yes? There's an industrial future. We have to learn to turn waste into food. In nature, there's no such thing as waste. The excrement of one animal is the food for another. We've invented waste. We have to uninvent it. Turn all waste into food, not necessarily human food, but food which industries can reuse. Ways and wheres for that. Now, the third one, another big one, is zero net collateral damage. This is one of my design rules for sustainability. You see, collateral damage comes from the defence sector, but it means unintended consequences. Yep. But unsustainable medicine happens when you give chemotherapy to a cancer patient. Lots of collateral damage. You might cure the cancer, but perfection would be curing the cancer with zero collateral damage. Yes? The industrial future. That's sustainable medicine. In agriculture, we put the pesticide on the crop. It kills the big bugs we meant to kill. It kills a whole lot of bugs we didn't mean to kill. The fish and swans in the river, and sometimes the person at the plane putting the pesticide on. But the new biological controls or even gene technologies mean we can actually create the ways and wheres to create zero net collateral damage, i.e. sustainable agriculture. You see, sustainability means doing everything with zero net collateral damage. See, these are design rules I construct because we are all problem-centered. You see, we think about unsustainable, less unsustainable. But we also talk about dealing with illness, which is the problem-centered place. We don't spend enough time creating wellness. I'm going to talk about wellness in a minute. Okay? One of my favourite ones, you all a lot of work in ageing. I created a phrase called successful ageing, which has now been picked up by a few people, including here in Queensland. And if I ask you, are we a successfully ageing society? Most people say, at the best maybe, but we can do a lot better. Well, what does successful ageing look like? Can we imagine it and go out and make it happen? And get to the future first and have a successful ageing export industry, exporting ways and wares to the whole planet. Of course we can. By golly, we can make money out, lots of money out. You can all become filthy rich, you know. You have skill sets in your heads which are not being used because you have a problem-centered approach. How do you deal with illness in our over-medicalised system of aged care? I mean, my goodness, aged care now means giving medicines to ill people or aged people. But the fact is I've had to create a whole new series of new concepts of ageing. One of my favourite ones I call Indian summer adulthood. You know, between the time we, quote, retire, and I never plan to do that, and become quite seriously disabled, so we can't look after ourselves, we have decades. And we need to actually take this part of successful ageing and create spaces in that, in creating, reinventing elderhood would start. And I had to work on that. I want you to imagine a whole series of jobs with the word elder, a noun elder, and before it an adjective like mediation elder, sustainability elder. And we put these back into the workforce, working 2 days a week as wisdom workers. Need those? Can we create an entire industrial future for all the people who are in that Indian summer? Not compulsory. A lot of people want to go play golf 6 days a week. I don't know why, but they do. I'm not going to criticise for doing that, if that's what they want to do. But a lot of people want to give something back, because surely the definition of a purposeful life, a life which is to hand on to the future to your children something rather larger than what you got from your parents. That's a fruitful, purposeful life. Gives us a meaningful life is to do that. So basically we're talking about now is creating all of those things. Okay? So ways and wheres are everywhere. Successful ageing, ways and wheres. And in my slides I have a talk about elderhood and Indian summer adulthood and redefining things. Like Louise had to redefine her career path because she was disabled. Well, she didn't actually become disabled, so she decided a child. But a person becomes disabled, say, at 30, can't do what they were doing. Maybe they're a great tennis player. They said, well, and there's a book by this woman whose name I've momentarily forgotten, who was a very famous bicyclist for long-distance bikes, who was disabled in an accident, and now she flies gliders. That's possible future. Basically, we are talking about keeping people to take control of their own lives and manage their own lives. And the way that I want to do that is create what I call a yellow brick road. You all know yellow brick roads. You remember Wizard of Oz, which comes out of the mythological contribution of great people like Joseph Campbell. I don't know how many people you know the work of Joseph Campbell, but if you do, you should. He talks about myths. His greatest book is called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And he talks about there's only one great myth in the world with 1,000 different variations. And he's the person who inspired the Star Wars movies. Of course, he actually reminded people that, actually, we've just seen all this before in Wagner's Ring of the Nibelung, those who know your opera. It was the same story. And the such story has been told many times, or over and over. But the yellow brick, imagine the yellow brick road. Here we have the person on a career path, on a healing path, on a wellness path. I'm going to talk about wellness in a minute. On a path into successful ageing. A journey to be made which you walk. You might, in The Wizard of Oz, of course, you know that we're all going to see the wizard and have our hearts fixed and our brain fixed. And when we got there, we found the wizard was a phony, but it didn't matter, did it? Because the transformations occurred on the way there. That's the power of myth. That's what Joseph Campbell was all about, the transformational design. I want you to imagine everybody of your people is working a pathway. Along that pathway which they design themselves, work with others as learners, as motivated people, and on the way they interact interdependently with a whole series of service providers. They're provided with a service and they then negotiate the next stage of the service part, at the end of the road. So everybody visualises the journey into improved wellness, successful, better ageing, visualising and working. Well, that's what Louise was talking about. The whole issue of visualising something and then going out and making it happen. We have a whole group of people who are dependent on you. They first should be independent of you so they can make their own mind up, but they also should be interdependent with you when you provide services through mutual obligations. We will give you that if you give us that. What we need to do is totally change the way we perceive, I think, the work that you do, so we are all motivated, purposeful, future makers, leader of self. That's not an impossible dream. It's actually something we could do, but we have to visualise it and make it happen. And I think we can. And I think that's basically, if you're going to create an industrial future for yourself, which will be a world beater, I'm suggesting some of these toolkits that I'm talking about. Is time up almost? I thought it might be. I haven't even got on. I'll quickly talk about wellness for 2 minutes. Wellness. We have illness and we have wellness. Yeah? Okay. Curing illness is what doctors do. Creating wellness is what other people do, but doctors should be doing and aren't. Yeah? That's a scandal I could go into, but the important point is wellness has 2 bits. Well-being, which is being well and staying well, and well-becoming, becoming well. Now, wellness is tied to another concept which comes from a man whose name is Stephen Boyden from Canberra. I don't know whether many people would know him. But he created the concept of meliors. M-E-L-I-O-R-S. He invented this word. And he said, well, Hans Selye and Alice Comfort were 2 people who created the whole concept of stress management and stressors. And we talk about removing stress. They took the word distress, crossed off the DI, and created stress management as an industry. Industrial future. That's becoming less stressed. Well, what's the antithesis of distress? That's bliss. Up here, bliss. We all experience bliss. I've now created a continuum. So one end we have distress, other things bliss. Now, what makes you blissful? You have your own different things to create your own bliss. They're your meliors, the things that make you blissful. So I could work with people to say, not only remove the stress, but actually create the bliss by doing things in your life with your own meliors. So I have melior conversations with people to say, what are your meliors? Make a list of them and make sure you practice 2 of them each day. Because you know what makes you feel fantastic. We all have that capacity. That's leader of self. That's future making. I'm going to make myself feel fantastic. I'm going to find, and over time, the meliors change. So we have too much problem-centeredness, removing illness, and not enough mission-directed thing, creating wellness. It's a total imbalance. 96% of the budget's on the health, and the rest is on wellness. I call the illness, the medical industry, the health industry. As you see, okay. So I'm getting us a wound-up sign, so I'll have to wrap this up. I could go on for a couple of hours, but never mind. 3 thoughts. We cannot work to create a future which we do not first imagine. Einstein said imagination is more important than knowledge. Amen to that. Imagine the future, use your imagination, make it a preferred and possible future, go and make it happen in every aspect of your life. The second one is those who do not live in the future today will live in the past tomorrow. You see, the manager part of us walks into the future and says, well, that's the trends, I have to fix them up, the problems up. The vision that the other person walks into the future today and imagines something different and says, why not, like George Bernard Shaw said. Those who don't live in the future today will live in the past tomorrow. And here's my final comment. Ralph Waldo Emerson said this, which is my mantra. Think about it, making it yours. In this whole industrial future, creating it, and also your own personal futures. He said, do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Thank you.